You know that feeling when you're staring at an email from an international partner and you are just totally lost on what they actually mean? Yeah, we've all been there. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what it literally takes to thrive in international commerce. A lot of us think mastering a language just means memorizing vocab and nailing the grammar. But in the high-stakes world of global business, that is barely scratching the surface. Today, we're going to see why true fluency takes a much deeper toolkit if you want to survive and thrive out there.
It's a wildly frustrating reality for so many professionals. I mean, picture this. You study for years, you ace a high-level language test, and then, boom, you jump on your first real-world Zoom call with a global partner, and your mind just goes completely blank. They're dropping phrases you've never heard, the cultural subtext is just flying right over your head, and you realize you don't actually know how to read the room. It just goes to show that true fluency is way more than textbook knowledge. You need cultural empathy, a really strategic mindset, and the ability to navigate the unspoken rules of business.
So, here is our roadmap for today. We'll cover the business lingua franca, escaping the grammar trap, analyzing business documents, culture, trust, and rapport, and finally, mastering the negotiation. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. The business lingua franca. Let's look at the actual landscape of global corporate communication. Academics call this environment BELF, or Business English as a Lingua Franca. Basically, English has become the standard operating system for global trade. It's the connective tissue that multinational companies use to manage partnerships across the globe. But here is a massive relief for non-native speakers. Because this operating system is used by millions of people whose first language isn't English, the end goal completely shifts. You really don't need to stress about having a pristine, perfect Oxford accent. The absolute priority here is mutual, practical understanding. It's just about getting the job done effectively, no matter where you're from.
Moving on to Part 2, Escaping the Grammar Trap.
Now, the problem we see time and time again is that an excessive focus on rigid grammar actually traps recent graduates, and it leads to massive oral communication breakdowns. Look at this incredibly stark structural contrast. Take Thai students, for example. In Thai grammar, nouns just don't indicate singular or plural the way English does, and there is no complex subject-verb agreement required, none. So when these professionals switch to English, they aren't just learning a few new words, they are literally being forced to develop entirely new mental habits to process subject-verb-object rules on the fly. Imagine the mental gymnastics required to do that in real time. If you get too bogged down trying to execute perfect mechanics during a high-pressure live conversation, your communication flow is going to completely stall out. We have to prioritize flow over flawlessness. Which brings us to a really powerful quote from the research. Speaking by itself does not form a communication unless what is said is understood by the listener. Ultimately, memorizing syntax won't save you if you can't actively listen. In this BELF environment, you aren't just hearing one standardized voice. You're going to encounter beautifully diverse, real-world accents from India, South Africa, the UK, Brazil, Japan, you name it. Training your ear to adapt to these diverse dialects is honestly far more important than flawless grammar. Your biggest takeaway here? Listening to and really understanding diverse global accents is absolutely your most crucial homework.
Part 3. Analyzing business documents.
All right, let's switch gears from the spoken word to the written word. General business awareness won't help you decode a foreign client's complex email unless you actually know how to critically analyze it. Enter the PRYCA method. This is an actionable, insider blueprint that transforms you from a passive reader into a highly strategic critical thinker. Next time you get a dense document, just stop and walk through these letters. P stands for purpose. Why did they hit send on this exact day? R is relationship. What's the dynamic here? Are they a boss, a peer, or a vendor? Y stands for you. How are you being addressed? Is it super formal or kind of casual? C is content. What is the chord tone of the text? And finally, A is action. What tangible step needs to happen next? Running through this quick framework ensures you don't miss the subtle subtext hiding right between the lines.
And here is exactly how you put that method to work. Knowing how to deeply analyze text helps you navigate the main differences in standard corporate documents. For instance, when you apply the PRIKK method to a report, you're primarily looking for objective facts. Reports just convey findings for action. But when you apply it to a proposal, your radar should immediately go up for persuasive language. Proposals are formal attempts to convince you to do something. You're no longer just reading, you're investigating. You're looking for their angle, the relationship the author is trying to leverage, and the exact action they want you to take.
Which brings us to Part 4, Culture, Trust, and Rapport.
So, how often have you tried to rush a contract signature just to get a deal over the finish line?
Well, scholars point out a pretty humbling reality here. The true foundation of a sustainable international partnership isn't a legally binding piece of paper. It's genuine, culturally aware trust. In many parts of the world, business simply cannot proceed until a personal connection is firmly established. You literally have to become friends first and business partners later. Language acts as both a barrier and a bridge here, and exactly how you use it determines whether that trust gets built or broken.
Notice the incredible contrast in approaches here. On one side, we have high literacy societies, which you'll often find in Western business cultures. These cultures love to dive straight into direct contracts, clear rules, and hard negotiations. Their trust is heavily based on written rules and the very real threat of legal penalties. But on the flip side, we have indirect cultures. Here, trust requires you to build personal rapport first. It's built on understanding someone's personality through informal stuff. Wining and dining, playing a round of golf, maybe finding shared personal interests outside of the boardroom. If you bring a direct, aggressive, contract-first approach to an indirect culture, there's a good chance you'll deeply offend your partner and kill the deal before the negotiation even begins.
To build that vital, indirect trust we just talked about, professionals need to lean into strategic networking habits. Think of this as the timeline for building rapport. It starts right there in the room, partnering with peers to build social proof. Then, the momentum shifts online. Actively connecting with those professionals on social media right after the meeting wraps up. The next phase is sending a highly personalized thank you message that calls back to something specific you both discussed. From there, you keep the relationship warm by following up on ongoing projects and proactively sharing resources that offer mutual benefit. It's an organic, ongoing process that steadily expands your circle of influence.
And finally, Part 5, Mastering the Negotiation.
This brings us to the ultimate test of cross-cultural communication, the international negotiation. This is where your active listening, reading analysis, and cultural rapport all come together. Successful negotiation is a highly structured process, broken down into 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 is preparation and planning. This means identifying your clear objectives and truly understanding the cultural landscape before you even set foot in the room. Phase 2 is the actual negotiation session itself, where you probe, debate, and ideally sign. But crucially, it doesn't end there. Phase 3 is agreement handling. Simply put, the negotiation doesn't end when the ink dries. It ends when the promises are actually fulfilled. You have to monitor compliance and dispatch statements. Continuous, iterative communication across all 3 of these phases is exactly how you find alternative solutions and keep conflicts from escalating.
Now, keep in mind that modern negotiations frequently, if not entirely, happen over email. Mastering specific email discourse strategies is absolutely vital to your success. Research highlights that knowing how to properly structure your opening and closing sequences sets the entire tone. But more importantly, things like apologizing across cultures, that can be an absolute minefield. In some cultures, an apology is just a polite way to smooth things over, while in others, it's viewed as a formal admission of legal guilt. The same goes for refusal strategies. Knowing how to say no politely without burning a bridge is a high-level skill. Even boasting, which academics literally call a face-threatening act, has to be calibrated perfectly to the culture of the person receiving the email. If you boast too much, you look arrogant. Boast too little, and you might look incompetent. It is a very delicate balance.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a hard look at your own inbox and your upcoming meetings. We've seen that surviving the global business landscape is about way more than just passing an English exam. It requires active listening, rigorous structural analysis using methods like PRICA, deep cultural empathy, and carefully deployed negotiation strategies. So the question is, are your current cross-cultural communication habits building bridges, or are they unknowingly creating barriers? The global lingua franca is out there waiting for you to fully master it. The choice is yours. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep building those bridges.